Hello, thanks everyone for joining us in this session of Spokane Public Schools Keeps Learning series for mathematics. Today's lesson is for students in grade 3, but all are welcome to join in. In this lesson, you will be learning all about tangrams. Now this is the second in our series. My name is Kelsey Shadow and I'm a third grade teacher at Cooper Elementary in Spokane Schools. I will be your teacher for this lesson. I'm so glad that you're participating with us today. If you didn't have a chance to see our previous lessons, you are welcome to view them on SPS's YouTube channel. Sometimes it's helpful to go back and watch other lessons in the series so you can continue to build your understanding of mathematics that we will be doing together. Like I said, today we are going to be learning all about tangrams. That's a part of geometry, looking at shapes, angles, and attributes within them. This is a special puzzle. For today's lesson, you will need a pencil, paper, and if you have them, scissors. If not, you can tear the paper, and that's okay. I will give you a minute to go gather those supplies. We are going to go ahead and begin looking at our tangram pieces by building them. Let's get started. Now that we're ready to make our tangram puzzle, we're going to start by folding a piece of paper. To begin, we're going to need this piece of paper to begin a square. Then we will be looking at all of these different segments. Let me switch over to my document camera. I'm going to go ahead and begin making our tangram. So this tangram, if you notice, starts out as a square, but our paper is rectangle. So generally, if we took it out of a journal or a notebook, it's going to be a rectangle. So we need to start off by making it a square. To make it a square, I'm going to take this bottom corner and I'm going to fold it up until I get a triangle. Then notice that this has met all the way down the side. So now I have this triangle and I have a rectangle up there at the top. So to begin, I'm going to cut that rectangle off. Now when you cut and fold, get it as close to it as possible, but if it's not perfect, that's okay. So now I have this square. So to begin, I'm going to unfold my square and I'm going to cut those two triangles apart. So we started off by already beginning those two triangles. So I'm going to cut those two triangles apart next. So there's our two triangles. Now I'm going to take these two triangles and I'm going to put one triangle aside to begin with because we don't need it to start. So I'm going to start by building triangle 1 and triangle 2 that are up here in the corner. So next to my face we have triangle 1 and up above we have triangle 2. So these are going to be the two that we're going to start with. So I'm going to take this big triangle and I'm going to fold it in half. So when I fold it in half, again, I'm going to try and get it as close to as possible. If it's not perfect, that's okay too. So I'm going to take this triangle and I'm going to draw a line. You don't have to draw a line. I'm just showing you where I'm going to cut. So at this point in time, I'm going to cut that. And here I have triangle 1 right here. And I have triangle 2 right here, just like we have in our picture. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those two apart. Now I've labeled those two, and if you want to label them too, that's great. It helps keep track of them for later. If you don't have a pencil around, that's okay as well. So I'm going to put triangle 1 and triangle 2 aside, and now I'm going to work to create the rest of the shapes, the other 5 shapes using this piece. Okay, so the first step is going to be similar, but it's a little bit different, so please don't cut them apart. I am going to fold it in half, just like we did with the other one. But I have this really long straight side. And that's going to be this middle line between the two triangles we already made and the rest of the shapes. Okay, now I'm going to take this top corner and I'm going to fold it down on that fold all the way until it meets that long straight side. Okay, now you have a trapezoid with this triangle flap on the top. So when I fold it out, I have now that triangle 3 there at the top. So I'm going to take that triangle 3 and I'm going to cut it off. On that line. So there, right now, we have triangle 3 and we have our trapezoid. Triangle 3, I'm now going to put over here in this pile off to the side with 1 and 2, and I'm going to work to create my other 4 shapes. So to begin, we are going to take this trapezoid and we're going to cut it in half, that same line that we already folded on. So I'm going to cut that trapezoid in half. And you can probably guess, we're going to start off using one piece and we're going to put the other piece off to the side for just a minute. So this first piece that we're going to start with is going to make our square number 4 and our number 5 triangle. So I'm going to fold it in half. So I'm going to fold my acute small angle of the triangle up to the right angle on the opposite side. So again, I'm going to show you that. So I'm going to fold this corner up to the other side. Okay, all the way along the side. Now I'm going to cut my square and my triangle apart. So this is triangle 5. This is square number 4. So I'm going to cut those two apart. And you guessed it, I labeled them. So now I'm all done making them, and they're going to go in my pile off to the side with triangles 1, 2, and 3. My last step is to take this trapezoid and make it into parallelogram 7 and triangle 6. So to do that, we're going to take this right corner on the long side and we're going to fold it to the angle opposite. Okay, so I'm going to take this corner and I'm going to fold it across. Okay, now I have my parallelogram and my triangle. I'm going to draw our line so we know where we're going to cut. And this is going to give me triangle 6 and parallelogram 7. Okay, I'm going to give you a second to get caught up. And make sure that you have parallelogram 7, triangle 6, 4, 5, 3, 1, and 2. Once you have all of your shapes, I want you to try and make it back into our Tangram puzzle that's off on the side of our screen. See if you can recreate it. We're going to move on and do some geometry shapes now.
So students, now that we've created our Tangram puzzle, I want us to start by sorting it into 2 different parts. Start by making a pile of triangles and a pile that are not triangles. Remembering that a triangle has 3 sides. You're going to have 5 shapes in the triangle side, and you're going to have 2 shapes in the not triangle side. At this point, you should have triangle 1, triangle 2, triangle 3, triangle 5, and triangle 6 in one pile. On the not triangle side, you'll have square number 4 and parallelogram number 7. So if we look at these triangles, let's start with the triangle side. We have all of these different shapes that we just finished creating. And I'm going to look at these vocabulary words up in the corner, and I'm going to start with the words congruent, and I'm going to start with the words similar. So the word congruent means this. Congruent means that I have 2 shapes that are exactly the same. That means their length of sides are the same and the angles are the same. So in order to have a shape that is congruent, they have to be exactly the same. So let's start by looking at triangle 6 and triangle 1. Are triangle 6 and triangle 1 exactly the same? No, they're not. Triangle 6 is a lot smaller than triangle 1. What about triangle 1 and triangle 2? Now remembering that if we didn't cut it exactly right, which I didn't, you're going to have a little bit of overhang, and that's okay. But we know that they're congruent. They're close to being the same exact shape. If we were a true mathematician that was going to be cutting these exactly perfect, then those two would be exactly congruent. But my angles are the same when I line them up, and my sides are the same length when I line them up. Now, do you have any other triangles that are congruent? Go ahead and check. If you came up with triangle 5 and triangle 6 as being congruent, you're correct. They are the same. Now let's look at that word similar. So the word similar means that they're close to the same. They have the same angles. So if I line up the angles or the points, they're the same. But maybe my sides are a little bit different lengths. So I'm checking triangle 1 and triangle 6 right now. And all my angles are the same, but it's just that my sides are longer on triangle 1. So triangle 1 and triangle 6 are similar. Now if we look at the other set of vocabulary words, quadrilateral, parallel, and right angle, that has to do with these two shapes. Our shape that's number 4, our square, and our number 7, our parallelogram. So parallel means that it's train tracks. That means that I have two lines that are never going to touch. So if I were a train, I could run on this track and I'm never going to crash. But these two lines are perpendicular. If my train tried to go on this track, it's going to crash. So those parallel lines are two lines that never touch. So in my square, I have two parallel lines on the sides and two parallel lines on the top and on the bottom. My parallelogram, I have two across from each other and two that are opposite on the other side. So these are both quadrilaterals. They have 4 sides. They're parallel. What about that last word, right angle? Who remembers what a right angle was? If you said that a right angle was like a sheet of paper, it's 90 degrees, you're correct. So if I looked here on my shape 4, my square, I have 4 right angles. Does my parallelogram have any right angles? No. What about my triangles? Do they have right angles? They do. They have 1 right angle up there in the corner. So we have some right angles on some of our shapes. Some of our shapes have parallel lines, some of our shapes are quadrilaterals, some of our shapes are congruent, and some of our shapes are similar. Let's do some more work with our shapes now. So now I have polygons. Polygons, remembering, are a closed figure. That means that there's no open space. If I were to put an animal into that closed shape, they can't get out without jumping over the edge. It means that I have 3 or more sides. Remembering that 2 sides, I can't make it closed. I can't close it off without that 3rd side, which would make it a triangle. And my last one means that it's 2-dimensional. It means that it's flat. So these are all 2-dimensional shapes that we just came up with. A 3-dimensional shape means that I can add something to it. I can fill it up. So that would be like a cup is 3-dimensional, or a box is 3-dimensional because I can put things inside of it. But right now we have 2-dimensional shapes. We also have some different shapes that are called regular polygons and irregular polygons. So now if we're looking at regular polygons, that means that all of the sides are the same. So if I'm looking over here at this regular polygon side, all those sides are the exact same length. That also means that my angles are exactly the same, those corners. Now if I'm looking at the irregular polygons, they're not that way. Their sides are all different lengths, their angles are all different. So irregular means that they don't quite go exact, but they're still closed. They still have 3 or more sides and they're still flat, so they're still a polygon. Today we're going to work with regular polygons. To begin our work with regular polygons, we're going to be using what we call our tans. Tans are pieces of our tangram puzzle, those 7 pieces that we just created. So I want you to start. Can you make a square using 2 pieces? If you came up with yes, maybe you put triangle 5 and triangle 6 next to each other and you made a square. That works. Maybe you put triangle 1 and triangle 2 next to each other. That would work as well. Now, can you make a square using 3 pieces? What about another triangle using 2 pieces or 3 pieces? Remembering, a triangle has 3 sides. Now, rectangles are a little bit more of a challenge using our tans. Can you make a rectangle? What about a trapezoid? So I want you to spend some time, and I want you to spend some time exploring making other shapes, other polygons with these tangram pieces. Now I know some of you might be thinking, Miss Shadow, this is way too easy. I want to see how many different methods can you use to come up with a quadrilateral, a 4-sided shape. That's any shape that has 4 sides. Can you make it with 2 pieces? Can you make it with 3 pieces? Can you make it with 4 pieces or 5 pieces or 6 pieces or all 7? I know that you guys can take on this challenge.
Thank you for joining us today in Tangrams Part 1. I have enjoyed doing some mathematics with you today. Thanks for joining me as you continue to learn from home. I look forward to seeing you again on our next lesson doing Part 2 of Tangrams. Bye guys, have a great day.